casting doubt upon it. So we talked about history, we talked about archaeology. Let's talk for a few minutes about the manuscripts. We talked a little bit, in a sense, talking about the Dead Sea Scrolls, but let's talk about some more things to do with manuscripts. First of all, some numbers. There are about 5,000 Greek manuscripts of the New Testament from the early years, 1st and 2nd century, and there are about 19,000 in other languages. These are very early documents from, as I say, the 1st, 2nd century, the generation following on from the time of Jesus and the apostles or thereabouts, and there are vast numbers. And why are these numbers important? Well, they're important in terms of the reliability of the record and the trustworthiness of the Bible, because there are so many compared to other documents of antiquity. For example, we have over 22,000 copies or bits of the New Testament, whereas we have just so few of the Iliad. I don't think scholars today would dispute that the copies we have of the Iliad are accurate copies. So why should we have any dispute that the copies we have of the New Testament are not accurate compared to the original writings from the 1st century? Here's a chart detailing dates written and earliest copies of some famous books and authors and people from antiquity. Caesar, his Gallic Wars that he wrote were written somewhere between 100 and 44 BC. The earliest copy we have is from 900 AD, which means there's a gap between the original writings and the earliest copy that we have to hand of 1,000 years. And indeed, there are only 10 copies. No one, though, particularly disputes that what we have in our hands is an accurate copy of what Caesar wrote 1,000 years previously. Plato's writings, very important, well before the time of Jesus Christ. Earliest copy, 900 AD, 1,200-year gap, and only 7 copies. Pliny, a 750-year gap. Sophocles, a 1,400-year gap between his original writings and the earliest copy we have. He does relatively well in terms of the numbers of copies, 193. Aristotle, again, 1,400 years, near enough, between his writings and the earliest copy we have, and yet people are pretty satisfied that what we have is accurate. Now let's compare that with the New Testament, written between approximately 55 AD and 90 AD. The earliest fragment we have, which we'll talk about more in a moment, is from about 120 AD. The time gap there at the most is 30 years between the last writing of the New Testament and the earliest copy we have of any of it, and we have over 24,000 copies, fragments and full copies of the New Testament in the early years of Christianity. If we're going to trust that Caesar's writings, Plato's writings, Pliny, Sophocles, and Aristotle's writings, the writings that we have are accurate copies, we must also agree that what we have as copies of the New Testament are accurate. I have held this fragment of the Gospel of John, in a sense, in my hands, sandwiched between 2 plates of glass from the John Rylands Library up in Manchester. It's a remarkable thing. It's the earliest fragment of the New Testament that we have. It's called Papyrus 52. It's John chapter 18, verses 31 to 33. And it's there, and it's a remarkable thing to see it and to hold it. The documentation of the accuracy of the New Testament is overwhelming. Even, truth be known, even atheistic and hostile historians don't hold the view that Jesus was just a legend, or that the Bible was written 200 years after the events. The Gospel accounts were written just 30 to 60 years after Jesus' death. That's not enough time for a legend to develop or some religion of weird claims. So we have an extraordinary amount of evidence. Let's go on and finally talk briefly about our final reason to trust the Bible, which is the church. Now, you may find that slightly interesting, but I want to ask you to think about something. The church does exist, and the church did exist in the 1st century and expanded rapidly. We have to take account of or find a way to explain the fact that the early Christians said they claimed to be eyewitnesses of the resurrection. The church exploded with growth, and there was extensive persecution, and somehow this did not stop the church from growing and Christianity as a religion from exploding across the Roman Empire at that time. It's one thing to say, I heard somebody who knew somebody who told me that one time they saw Jesus, but the Christian writers claimed to have met and seen and touched and eaten with Jesus Christ after his resurrection. The church exploded with growth on the basis of that teaching, and it was extensively persecuted on the basis of that teaching, that they were proclaiming a risen, living Lord. You might be deluded into that, but if you claim you saw the risen Jesus, and not only you but hundreds of others, it's too many people to be just making it up. And who would die for something that they knew was a lie? We have to take account of the growth of the church. And to conclude, I'd like to ask you to think about this. If the Bible is not true, I think it would simply confirm what we want. But the fact that it is trustworthy and true, for me, is comfortingly uncomfortable. I like the idea that the Bible challenges my morals, my ethics, and my lifestyle. It's, as someone once said, it's not the bits of the Bible I don't understand that bother me, it's the bits I do understand. Would you want a book from the divine being that told you everything's fine, carry on as you are? That's not going to change anything in this world. It's not going to change anything in us. The Bible is comfortingly uncomfortable. I think we need that. We need something that's going to improve us. And perhaps one reason people don't trust the Bible is because they fear that it may require them to change. But then that's exactly what we need. If there is a God, we need him to communicate to us how to live and how to think and how to be in this world and what life is really all about. And if we're going to learn that from a divine being, surely there's going to be parts of that that are going to be difficult for us, but it's going to be good for us. A big question, really, I think, is does the Bible work? Jesus said this in John 7. If anyone chooses to do God's will, he will find out whether my teaching comes from God or whether I speak on my own. Putting the Bible into practice may at times be hard, but it will be worth it. I'd like to challenge any of us who doubt the trustworthiness of the Bible to actually put it into practice. And I believe you will find that it does work. Perhaps the other question really is, will you work it? Oh, it works all right. Millions of people over human history will tell you that. But will you work it? As G.K. Chesterton said, the Christian faith has not been tried and found wanting. It has been found difficult and left untried. I'd like to urge all of us that are thinking about the Bible and whether it's trustworthy to at least try it, at least give it a go, at least study it and read it and put it into practice. I believe the issue is this. Can we trust the Bible? My question would be, can we afford not to? It's so important. It's so different. It is unique. There is no other historical document like it. And since that is the case, it behoves us to study it, to read it, to take it seriously, and to find its application for our own lives. I do hope this has been interesting and helpful. If you'd like more information about our church and our activities, please log on to our website, www.iccmissions.org. That's iccmissions, one word, .org. And may God bless you.